So out here jacking around with the Grey Goose twin turbo Mustang build that I'm doing, if you haven't seen it. And I got a transmission here in the shop that I'm working on for a buddy of mine, and it just happens to be pro shifted, a pro shifted tranny. And thought maybe there might be like 2.5 of you out there that may be interested to see what pro shifted means. What is a pro shifted tranny and how does it work? So I'm going to show you really quick. It's not going to take long. Most of your trannies now, pro shifted, or what they call like a face plated gear. Basically all it is they're removing the synchronizers in the transmission and they're modifying the slider or making a new slider and modifying the actual engagement piece on the gear itself. So if you're not really familiar with the way that a 5-speed transmission works, when I say sliders and synchronizers and all that stuff, if you're not really familiar with it, this will make sense when I show you, but you may not understand what it would look like factory. Alright, so here you go. Basically in a manual transmission, you have the upper gear set. So this is the output shaft. There's an actual input shaft that goes right here. And then you have a lower gear set, which they call gear cluster. Actually, hold tight for 1 second. So this here is the cluster shaft. So basically in the tranny, it's going to look something like that. You have your cluster shaft, you have your upper gears. Now this cluster shaft, all these gears are solid. So a lot of times these are one solid piece. This one just happens to be a 2-piece, but these bottom 2 gears are pressed on and so they can't move independently of each other. The upper ones are not like that. So all the gears move independently of each other. Okay, this one would spin too if it wasn't sitting on this one. And the input shaft is made solid to 4th gear. So the gears are 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and then 4th sits out here on the input shaft. So just a brief lesson. Say the tranny's in 1st gear. The power comes in through the input shaft, through what is 4th gear, down through the cluster, and back up through 1st. 1st is the one that's locked in, so then it travels out the output shaft. If you pull this out and put it into 2nd gear, which is this one, does the same thing. In through 4th, down through the cluster, up through 2nd, and then out the output shaft. So basically all that happens is these 2 sliders are attached to this output shaft. The rest of these gears spin independently. When you move one of these sliders and lock it up, engage it with the gear itself, that's how you make the ratio. Alright, that's how the power transfers through. If you pull it out, neutral, all these are just going to spin. You don't have any output at that point. And so like on a standard transmission, in between this slider, and there's 2 sliders, so you have a 1st to 2nd slider, so 1st to 2nd, so 1st to 2nd slider, and then you have a 3rd, which is this gear, to 4th gear slider. So this would slide up and mash up with 4th gear. So basically in a regular transmission that's not pro shifted, you don't have these big square teeth on there. What you have is a bunch of little teeth and a synchronizer. The synchronizer in between them is more like a clutch pack. And so what happens is you start to pull this into 1st gear or 2nd gear, whatever gear that you're pulling it into, that clutch pack basically meshes up and matches the speed of this gear with the speed of the actual output shaft. Once it matches the speed, then the slider is able to slide into gear easy. Now, when you're power shifting a car and you don't want to miss gears, you don't want that synchronizer in there. You don't want it to have to slow that gear down and mesh it up. Not only that, with the teeth, it has to match up perfectly. So the teeth on the synchronizer and the teeth on the gear itself are perfectly meshed. So in order for it to work, they have to be perfectly lined up and then meshed together. So what they've done is when they power shift these things, they basically just take out, every 2 teeth, right? So it's easy to kind of jam it in. And then they make these teeth bigger and stronger, and that's what these are. They call them face teeth. And so what happens is when you're going from 1st to 2nd, if you just jam it in there, there's no synchronizer to slow it down. It's going to go in every time. Even if you hit it on the tooth itself, it's just going to slide off and lock up. Hope that makes sense. Then you pull it out of 2nd, into 3rd, Okay, out of third and right into fourth, you're never gonna miss a gear. The only downfall to these is that they're extremely noisy at like in between speed. So when you're under power or when you're not under power, it's, you know, it's not gonna be that noisy. But when you're just kind of cruising, these things are clanking around, they're making all kinds of noise. Plus, when you pull it into gear, it sounds like the transmission's falling out of the car. It's super loud. But there you go. In the simplest terms that I can give it to you, pro shifted tranny, how it works. First gear, shift to second, pull it out, third gear, over to fourth. And if you're wondering, this is your fifth gear here, this is your overdrive, and then these teeth here on this slider are for reverse. And this is out of a T5. So this is a G-Force T5. These gears are a little more beefy than what you'd see in a standard T5, but other than that, it's the same configuration. All right, guys, there's my like 2 minutes of education. I'm sure you just learned a lot. Anyway, I figured there was a couple of you out there that might be interested in that. Figured I'd throw a little video together. Hope y'all having a good day. If you like it, hit the like button, and I'll see you guys Friday, if not before.